lot of struggles and a lot of battles. The spiritual war that I have been through to do these 2 sessions, probably, and I mean this, the toughest that I've been through. If I had to tell you what I've been through personally over the last month, it would be here until Sunday. And I canceled it, and it's been going on for a while. Last year, went through some stuff, and I canceled it because it was just stressful and doing some stuff. And it's just a simple presentation. But I do know that that's what pushed me also this year, because I knew that Satan hates the truth, right? He hates the truth. I was telling Pastor Sally, an old friend of mine who passed on. He was a mentor at Circle-Wide Bible Camp, and I remember going through some things up at Circle-Wide Camp, and his name was he was Pastor Leroy Yates, running Circle-Wide Camp. I don't know if some of you know about him. And I remember sitting up in camp, and I was going through things. This is probably about 20 years or more ago. And I just couldn't wonder why I was going through stuff. And I'm like, why other people other Christians ain't going through the same thing I'm going through? Other folks. And he had an old southern drawl, and my name at camp was Uncle Timmy with the kids. And Pastor Leroy Yates looked at me and he said, Uncle Timmy, the devil don't want to be bothered with a bunch of dummies. He was sharing with me, the reason why you're going through stuff is because you're a threat. So remember, living for Jesus, you also is important to the kingdom of God, but you also are a threat to his kingdom.
Absolutely.
And I wonder why other folks, they go through stuff because, and again, they ain't commented on other Christians because they're going to do what they do. But I got to stop you. Right? Remember when Jesus was born, Satan zeroed in on the bigger picture.
Right.
Remember that was the bigger picture. The king just wants to know, hey, I got to stop this guy because as a king can't take my position. Satan's like, yeah, okay, you keep that. I'm thinking ahead. I got to stop the king of kings. You want to stop the king? And so my point is that whenever I go through stuff and I push and I don't always succeed, but I just know that I can just feel it's like, yeah, I'm getting too much spiritual stuff, but there's something about this. And again, as part of also what I said earlier was when I was going through stuff, living up in Detroit, and then didn't want to share with folks what I was going through. Then the other part I didn't tell you, guess what? Years later, I found that everybody else was going through the same thing. Some of the same stuff. Not everybody. And I remember after that, going through stuff and being exposed, all the stuff I went through, and I remember so many men who later on kept on saying, I'm talking about I grew up with. I said, man, you know what? I know you've been through this. Can you help me with this and that? And found out that everybody, and as I was sharing with Cherry, it's just like what it says, make it plain, write it down, share the vision. We gotta tell our stories, stuff that we go through, and we wonder why the young generation don't know, and those that's preparing to get married and stuff, and we want to keep that stuff. Well, the Lord delivered me from that stuff. Yeah, He did. But guess what? Your deliverance was not God's. That was not the purpose for God. Your freedom was. Y'all get that?
Yeah.
Not the deliverance, it's the freedom. God says, no, I want you to be delivered, but the real reason is because I got a land for you. And so that's just keep me in prayer. As the folks say, pray my strength. Please pray my strength. But one of the things, and I'm open about this, you know, even this week, my personal struggle with depression, and one of the things that we don't like to talk about. So, real quickly, I'm gonna be like here, be quick, and then I want some interactive. What's depression, please? What is depression? Give me your version of depression.
Apathy, feeling bad.
Okay.
Anxiety.
Anxiety?
Wanting to be alone, solitude.
Wanting to be alone. Okay. And basically, all of that is it. What is depression? It's a mental health disorder characterized by persistently depressed mood or loss of interest in activities causing significant impairment in daily life. Now, again, there's no sin and there's nothing wrong about being depressed. You know, there's nothing wrong with being depressed. The issue is staying depressed. You stay depressed, and it causes significant impairment in daily life. So a mental health disorder characterized by persistently depressed mood or loss of interest in activities causing significant impairment in daily life. And I'm just going to talk about three things real quick about depression, and also want some feedback from you about how we deal with depression. So depression. How should we respond to depression? But before I even hit the next one, how do you think we should how should we respond to depression?
I don't think you should be in denial about it. I think you need to acknowledge it.
Very good. So you read my notes?
Face it.
Face it.
She said basically, but I was thinking recognize.
Yes! I like y'all.
Recognize. Deal with
That's right. Number one, expect it.
Okay.
Expect it. We're going to talk about three things. Expect it,
Yeah.
dissect it,
All right.
and reject it.
Okay.
Come on, work today.
All right?
Yes. Yes.
Expect it. As I said, it's okay to not be okay. Number one, spiritually, trust me. You going through depression, you are in some good company spiritually. Okay?
Yeah.
Jeremiah was what?
Thrown in a.
Thrown in a well, or a cistern, right? Depressed. And then also, he got, if you read the book of Jeremiah, he got depressed, and who did he get mad at? God. What, anybody know what he said to God? This is your Bible assignment. Go read the verse. Well, actually, he had a conversation with God. Matter of fact, he confronted God and said, number one, you tricked me. I forget what chapter was later on. He said, you tricked me. Why? I've been preaching 30 years to these folks, and ain't nobody got saved. I've been through all of this stuff, and he got, went through a very, very depressed state. Very depressed state. And then David, right? Many times. But the most time, the one time that I always think of, when David got his men together, they went out and fought with Zillah, and they came back and what?
Cried till he didn't have no more strength.
And then cried, but also he brought his men back, and when he got back to camp, what happened? Everybody was gone. All the women was gone, and what did the boys, what did they think about doing?
Killing
Stone.
Like, you got to go, bro. The verse that really gets me emotional now, and Pastor, I remember Don Braxton would always say, David, literally, the last verse that says, David encouraged himself in the Lord. But basically, David went and sat on the side of a mountain and encouraged himself in the Lord. You ain't got nobody else to talk to. Everybody else to get. These wasn't his. These was his boys.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
These my boys.
Right.
You think your boys thinking about killing you?
Right. Right.
So you're in good company. And then of course the son of Korah. What chapter am I thinking about? Look at it right now. 40. Right. 40 is it 42? Why am I what?
Disquieted.
Disquieted. Why am I downcast?
Hoping.
Why is my what? Soul so disquieted within me? That's depression.
Yeah. Hoping God.
Hoping God.
Yeah.
And then of course there's another one. I like this one. Is it 72? I look it up. What the writer says. I don't understand why the wicked is getting everything. Remember that? He says,
My foot almost.
and if you want to break it down, listen, I've been preached on this a couple of times. I say, I'm working every day, and I don't give it no personally. I'm working every day, trying to make it and backing it up, marriage and trying to make it. And the people over there ain't got no job. They on Section 8. They getting food stamps. They driving a Benz. I got this raggedy, broke down car. I'm serving the Lord, and yet still. And the writer says, why is the wicked getting everything, Lord?
Sir.
I don't understand. I'm your boy.
Sir.
And this is what I'm doing. And at the end he says, until I came into the house of sanctuary and I saw their end.
Stood there.
Submission, depression. And then of course, Paul, shipwreck. What did he say? He says, we even thought of, should have put the verse there. When they were shipwrecked and came, he says, we even thought of death. And the people that he got shipwrecked was going through some stuff. And then what about when he was in prison? And guess what? When Paul was in prison and he began to sing and praise, there's a verse there that says, and the prisoners were listening. You get that? They locked up, singing praises, and the verse says, the prisoners were listening. The world is looking at what we do with the same thing that they're going through. And I always say, once we display and present how Christians is, most people say, if that's what God doing for you, I'm straight. They know we're going through the same thing. Okay, so you're not drinking, you're not using drugs, you're not going and hanging around or whatever, so what are you doing for your depression? Because if you're not getting any victory in the same thing and going through the same thing, then leave me alone. Right? And so, of course, who's the greatest that suffered? Jesus.
Oh, yeah.
Did you read that verse?
Yeah.
He says, so much that sweat dropped like drops of blood. He was separated from his Father.
Right.
That hadn't happened for my little raggedy butt.
Yeah.
Right? So Jesus would do it. Jesus would do it. So, expected because you're going to go through it. In one aspect or another. Expected. You're in good company, biblical characters, all sorts of people went through it. And when you look at depression, it is not a respecter of people, right? On the West Coast, there's a gigantic church, and this still shakes me up. Mega church, I guess what they call it. And so I forget his name, but you may remember this 2 years ago. The director, they had an awesome mental health program. They have I was following a great program. The director, the pastor, had put it together over years. Great. All the other churches was using it. Just great. Mental health. Committed suicide. The pastor and the director of it. And you could probably tell me now, what about all of the from Robin, what's his name, the actor, comedian?
Robert.
Yeah, and all of them. And then there was a congressman, his son, committed suicide a couple years. And then think about, and if I had time to go through the stats that skyrocketed during the pandemic.
Absolutely.
Skyrocketed
Yes.
during the pandemic. Drug overdose, almost tripled. Heroin overdose, just unbelievable. And Dr. Lisa Lloyd talked in our last session about abuse, physical abuse, submissive abuse, and all that stuff. And all of these is a result of people not handling, being isolated, not handling depression. And so the first thing, you expect it. The other thing is that you need to dissect it. Where is it coming from? Where is it coming from? Number one, or not number, but a lack of victory, unmet expectations. What's unmet expectations? What do you think? What is unmet? Name some unmet expectations.
I should be spiritual life.
There you go.
I should be further along in my career.
There you go. Unmet expectations. Or, what about this one that Pastor Sally always says? What about unmet expectations from God?
Yeah.
What do we want to do? I got this plan. It's all laid out. I'm not understanding why you don't sign this off. There's nothing wrong with it, God. Look at this.
It's good.
It's good. This is great. I'm gonna help people. And then I'm kind of reminded of who was that hustle man on Martin? I'm trying to help you all. I'm trying to get people saved. Unmet expectations. Well, why didn't it work out? Why didn't my marriage work out? Why didn't a lack of victory? Why didn't this work out? And a lack of vibrancy. What does that mean?
I don't feel like doing stuff. I don't have the interest in doing stuff anymore.
And basically what it says, what?
Detached.
Unplugged lifestyle. Detached. Unplugged lifestyle. Where you going? I don't know. I'm just
I'm here.
what you want to do? I don't know. I'm gonna figure it out. You're not plugged in. You're not going anywhere. And you don't know where you're going. And like somebody said, and when you would know, right, that you're not going nowhere because you ain't nowhere. Right? An unplugged lifestyle. And now this is the one I want to also zero. A lack of vitality. A what? An unhealthy body. Now,
Chips every day.
well, let's go back to that one. One of the, well, later on, I also want to talk about unhealthy body. One of the things that is that I think we really need to zero in on or realize that when we talk about unhealthy body, that also in terms of, there's some things, and I want to ask actually get your opinions on some of the things that you do to help you deal with depression, but unhealthy body and also what, going to, you talk about going to a therapist, but also going to a doctor. For 20 years, I've had, for 20 years in terms of clients. Now again, I want you to hear me clearly because there's two sides to this. Now, first of all, let me tell you, I guess I'll go with the bad thing first. Now, one of the things that frustrated me as a clinician was dealing with people that have addictions. That's one of the main things that will throw your chemical imbalance off, right? All the serotonin, neurotoxins, and all that stuff, right? Words out of the guy. But so that means that there are sometimes that you need to go to a doctor and get your levels so that he can give you the right medicine,
Right.
so that you can get back to health. Let me give you a quick. This one used to always blow my clients. I'll give you this real quick. I'll give you this 2 free, like, yeah, this gonna be free. So I just tell my clients, how do you get high? And people say, well, you just take dope and whatever. I say, well, okay, let me break it down. I don't have time to show you the thing. But basically, when you get high, especially, I'm gonna use cocaine, for example. Use the cocaine. Cocaine, there's something in your brain, or what is called dopamine, right? Now, everybody smile right now. Right now, you just release dopamine. It makes you smile, right? Makes you feel good, right? So, of course, when you use cocaine, whatever, you really don't feel good, right? You're doing some things that you don't supposed to do. So, what happens is, cocaine is a blocker. So what happens, so cocaine will tell your brain to release dopamine, and then the brain has what's called a reuptake system. Just think of a vacuum. So in other words, when you release, when you stop smiling, that's your brain saying, okay, that's enough dopamine, bring it back up, right? So that you can have dopamine for the next thing. Whether you married and you especially in a relationship, and that dopamine definitely is released when you have sexual relationships, right? And then you smiling and you doing, that's all dopamine. So now, but dopamine is released and then it's taken out. So cocaine will tell your neurotransmitters when your brain tells dopamine to come back, cocaine will block it. All right, you follow me? So it stays in your body. Now, over a period of time, your brain has messed up dopamine so much, there's nothing to take up. So now what happens? Depression. So you got other stuff. So now, the reason why I went through that little scenario is because there are times where you need to go and the doctor will do your levels and say, hey, you need to take whatever medicines they give. Now, I do tell them, you gotta be cautious because unfortunately, there's a lot of psychiatrists and whatever just want to dope people up. I get that. Trust me. They won't, a good psychiatrist will look at your history, what you've been through, are you an addict, what drugs are you taking? Because are you doing heroin, are you doing cocaine and give you the right medicine? Or if you're not even on if you're not an addict, they will prescribe for you the right medicine to take. So that's all part. I will stop a little bit on there because an unhealthy body, you need to go get checked out. Physically, mentally, what's happening with me? What's going on with me? And especially if you have addiction is also more than just what drugs. Food addiction. Sex addiction, all sorts of that. So there's you need to do that to look at a lack of vitality, an unhealthy body. And of course, a lack of what?
Uncontrolled flesh.
Uncontrolled flesh.
Okay.
Simple things what? I want to do what I want to do. Right? Uncontrolled flesh. And so, and you have things that's feeding into our, especially young people, our uncontrolled flesh, right? Because the music and all that sort of stuff. I was talking to Robert Evans here about the next year we're going to have somebody come in, we're going to do a musical presentation of how music helps us mentally, right? Because what did King Saul do when he had demons? What did David do? Get David up here, right? Music helps us mentally. And what you put into your, it's a whole big thing on that. What you listen to, right? If you want to go out there and do the do, are you going to listen to Jesus, Your Name is Great?
Turn off the
Cardi, all the others, right?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe just me. Maybe, right. No. So, I like a virtue, uncontrolled flesh. Oh my. A lack of what?
Vision.
Vision. Uncontrolled unresolved differences. How many still got some issues and unresolved differences in your family that's just, and I'm not talking about waiting till they agree, because we can agree and not become what? Disagreeable. But you got some unresolved differences with family members. And I mention family members because that's something that I've been through the last, I shared last time, the last 2 or 3 years.
All right.
Unresolved differences. And guess what? Sometimes you can have some unresolved differences with yourself. Right?
That's true.
And you got to have some, and even though you may not say it because you want to stay out of what Pastor Son say to slap it on, but you may have some unresolved differences with God. You may not say it, but you act and you live like it. I had a niece who had changed and went to, alternative lifestyle. And of course, still love her and stuff. One of the things she said to my sister, she said, "Well, Auntie Marie, I don't know if you know that, I do, and I go and I like women now, so I guess God just gonna have to forgive me." And I said, "Yeah, God is going to forgive you, but God's attributes of love and justice do not wipe out his other ones." Y'all get that? Is there love in God? Absolutely.
Yes.
Does he love every last one of us? Absolutely. But his other attributes is not going to wipe out because you want to live the way you want to live.
Right.
Right? So unresolved differences. What we have to do is what? Reject it. Expect it. Dissect it. Find out where it's coming from. And guess what? Let me go back a little bit to dissect. There are some times when I get depressed, that guess what? Just going to the why will help. Just like, right? There's some things that's real simple. Talking to somebody. Sometimes you have to talk to a particular grandchild. So I got to find out. Or guess what? Sometimes I just need to, especially when I was married, it's just like, I'm laughing because she just just go eat. How bad that was a thing. I would be so irritable, and I have to laugh. Just please go eat. All you need to do is go eat. And so sometimes when I dissect it, and then I was like, ooh, yeah, you know what, that did work. So, rejected. And then, of course, there's, we talked about this a little bit, but a lack of victory. And so a lack of victory means that we need to reflect. One of the things that I used to do with my clients, and these are also clients in my regular that even as a secular counselor that would love, I would and the others, I would say, we all praise and we sing and we tell God what we think about him, right? We all done that. We pray. Have you ever looked up the verses about what God says about you? Oh my goodness, and I did this when I had the recovery home. And I did verses about what God says about you. And I don't have time to go into it, but it's you're selected among the beloved. He loves you. There's verses and verses about God, what God says about you. And somebody said, do you know God got a tattoo? How many know that? He says what? My name is what? Engraved. Think about that. All you know, they girlfriend and their wife's name, and then some of it's so funny because after you put your girlfriend name on there, then you ain't with her no more, or boyfriend no more. It's like you gotta take it off. So, as you reflect, there's three things that you need to, when you reflect about God. Number one, what does God want me to know about himself? All right? What does God want me to know about himself? Two, what does God want to grow in me? Three, what does God want to show others?
All right.
You see that? What does God want me to know about himself? There are some things that sometimes God wants to, if you look at from the beginning, from Genesis to Revelation, there's some things that God takes us through because I want to show you some things that you don't know about me.
Yeah.
Right? What is he trying to show me? Even this week, you know, let me give you an example. When I first did and I didn't share this, but when I first did the planning for this, and there was people, that's some here now and some last week that I put out there to help. It's all these people. I put out emails, people that want to help me put out to help with the symposium. So when I got here, and I didn't get a lot of registrations, but guess what? The last session, it was just the people that had signed up to help. I said, God, these just the people that's going to help me. Where are all these other folks that I put out about the stuff? Guess what? We had the best session. God says, the people that hear, they're the ones. Bless my heart. I didn't know. I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to get these folks and folks who come in. No, the people that I sent. I said, well, these are people that just signed up to help me serve the food and do something. No, they're the people that need to be here. They're the people that's got a story to tell. They're the people that's happy. Find out what God is trying to show you. He always would show you some things that he said, I thought it was going this way. No. And sometimes he just changes things just to let you know that he in charge.
That's right. That's right.
It ain't that it's a bad way. No, I want to go a different way. Why? Because I'm God and you not.
Right. Yes.
Right. And so just, oh, well, we can't go the way. Okay, be quiet. You get to the slap zone. How y'all parents know what that slap zone is, right? You just get chopped. Don't ask no more. Right? Don't ask about it no more. That's what, and then what Moses did, Moses kept asking them to go to the promised land, kept asking them, and God finally says, do not speak to me of this again. That's that slap zone, because you know you ask about it one more time. So, what does God want me to know about himself? What does God want to grow in me? We get to the point where we think, I got it all. You know, I've been around the block a few times. I know a few verses. And then God also will take something from us to grow something else. God prepares us for what he has prepared for us. But sometimes the preparation process is painful. You get that? He's preparing us for what he has prepared for us. He told the children of Israel, I got a land for you. Right?
Yeah.
But what did he say about the land? It ain't ready yet. Right?
Yeah.
It ain't ready yet. And then, of course, there was hard-headed, and A 13-day journey took them what? 40 years. 40 years. And then everybody from what? At age on had to die. Right. And then what does God want to show others in your life? What does he want to show others about you so that they can get to know him? What's in your life that will make people want to get to know God? What are you doing? What are we doing?
Yes.
How are we acting? How are we talking? So that other people would say, wow. You know, I remember even this little part-time job I had working with all sorts of people. But I remember one girl, young girl came up, she says, "There's something about you." She said, you must be a preacher or a pastor. And I had never said anything, whatever. I said, why? She said, because I had never heard you cuss. I didn't know that was a criteria. I do know some cussing preachers, but I said, and she said, there's something about you. So it could be something really small. I heard, everybody else cussing out the boss, everybody else talking about the boss, but you just seem to remain calm. What does God want to show others?
Yes. Right.
Yeah. And we talked about the lack of vibrancy. Your latitude will affect your solitude. You relate. And then, how do we repair? We talked about this earlier. How do you repair a lack of vitality? What? Better eating? Better sleeping habits? Increase exercise?
Oh, Lord.
Just right? Oh, that's not what it is. More health care prevention. And guess what, y'all? Who was one of the main partners that hung out with Paul?
Luke.
And what was it?
Physician.
The doctor. Dr. Luke. And when we, and I'm quite sure you've seen this before. And I like what even what Sharon was saying about it. When we pray for something or somebody sick and they don't get that way, or God takes them, and then we have an issue, no matter what the situation is, the end result is always what God wanted, what God allowed. What he allowed. It's what? It's for our good, but it's for what? It's glory. It's glory. Right? More health care prevention. And so we need to do, and again, I'm gonna do some bad English. Ain't nothing wrong when you go and get a therapist. And let people know that you get the therapist. If you those that. Now again, of course, you gotta be careful. People put your business on over, But yes, our daughter is matter of fact, checking in on me because trying to find a good therapist and a good not only mental health, but we had no problem with our physical health, right? We feel some aches, some things that's going on, but mentally, what's going on? You got broken relationships with your children, broken relationships. Oh, by the way, there's a guy, a good friend of mine, Jason Wilson, wrote a book, and then I found out this is powerful. We talk about crying, especially for men. Now check this out. And I think over the years, we've all been probably seen this or guilty of this. We always tell, in the past, maybe still some now, we tell boys what?
Don't cry.
Don't cry, right? And guess what? A doctor, I can't pronounce his last name, discovered there's a it's not a hormone, I think it's a hormone, whatever, if that's a word, in your tears, men's tears, that he's discovered that releases emotions, and so they have to cry to get rid of that. Jason's book is titled Battle Cry. And I looked it up and was like, yeah. So when we tell men don't cry, and they keep that in that's only released through tears, then we wonder why I got all this frustration. Now, that for me, when I read that, I'm like, that ain't never been a problem with me because I will cry like a baby. There's a movie, and I tell you right now, you turn on right now, and it's a Tyler Perry. We're talking about Tyler Perry. Tyler Perry movie, I forget the one, but anyway, at the end of it, where some women don't, whatever, anyway, at the end of it, Shamar says this thing to Kimberly, right? That scene makes me cry every time, because he says, right, diary of a bad black woman, I'm not going to think of that. And I can scream, how do you know you love me? Because I carry you in my heart. Every day. I can't think. I ain't got things like I cry all the time. I have no problem with shedding tears, and especially when if it's something sad, right? Now that probably came from growing up in my parents, but we need to really get out of that. Telling men, especially, you can't cry.
That's right.
So, better eating habits, increased exercise, more health care, religion. A lack of virtue. God's grace, James 4:6. A lack of vision. If you don't have a lack of vision, you don't know where you're going. A lack of vision also means that you need to, I used to tell the clients that you need to picture where you're going so you'll know when you get there. Example, one of the places I hope before I go on to heaven, I want to go, a real simple place is the Grand Canyon. And I always say, I want to go to the Grand Canyon. And the reason why, because years ago, I seen this movie with, I think it was Samuel Jackson, where the Great Divide. They just stand at the end of the movie. The movie ends with them standing and just looking at the Grand Canyon. And it's hitting me, and I want to go. Now, here's my point. When I get to the Grand Canyon, will I stand on the middle and offer and say, is this the Grand Canyon? Why would I not do that? Because I've seen pictures of it. I know what it looks like. So I'm not going to ask when I get to the Grand Canyon, so I'll know, and I should tell clients. So you need to picture what your marriage, picture what recovery looks like when you get there. What does it look like? It means that I'll be going to meetings, so you'll know, because if you don't know what it looks like when you get there, you're like, is this recovery? Is this a good marriage? What's a good marriage? A good marriage is when I go home and I love my wife. And I picture it so that when you get there, you'll know, yes, I'm having fun. If you don't know that, you'll know like, oh, is this all I'm going to be doing? No, picture it in your mind. So when you get there, you're like, yeah. Just like when I get there, I'll know, oh yeah, it's the Grand Canyon. You ain't got to tell me it's the Grand Canyon. I've seen it. I've talked about it. I've got pictures of it. I've seen movies of it. And so you got to have a vision. A vision. Where are you going? You got to recognize. Number one, stay focused on God. We got time. If you want these, I can give you these verses. Stay focused on God. Pray constantly. What? Before God. Pay what you vow to God. Now again, we ain't necessarily talking about money. But when we like, God, I'm yours, use me, right? Use me for wherever you want, God. Oh, really? Well, I just mean everything. we do when we challenge by depression and discouragement? We had time to go into how depression and discouragement also is linked. 2 Corinthians, look at verse 11. First of all, employ the community of God. That's what we're doing now. Let me talk to other folks that's going along, that's been through some of the same stuff that I go through.
Yeah.
Right? Remember I told you about it in church when I found out that I'm the only one? And that's what, just right. I just shared about what he taught me. I'm thinking that the people that came here that I thought was helping me was like, oh, bro, we with you. We'll help you, but we also going through the same thing. Employ the community of God. Excite the community of God. That's what we're doing now. Exciting. Hey, look, we in this. Turn to the end of the book. Guess what? We win. We win. Which will enlarge contact with God. So what's God's answer for depression? Lamentations 3:22. We'll read this when you get a chance. Read this.
Hold down.
Number one, affirm God's fidelity. Let's look at it real quick before we end. Lamentations. And guess what? What does the word lamentations mean?
Cry.
Crying. Remember I told you? That Jeremiah was what? The crying prophet. Right? The crying prophet. Listen, look at this. You gotta stop and think this. Because of the Lord's great love, we are what?
Not
Not
consumed.
Not consumed. For his what?
Mercy.
Compassion never fails. They are what?
New every morning.
When?
Everyone.
When? Every morning. Accessibility, verse 24. I say to myself, what? The Lord is my portion. Therefore, I will wait for him. Accept God's activity. Affirm God's fidelity. Access God's ability. Accept God's activity. Verse 25, what? The Lord is good to those whose what? Whose hope is in him, to the one who seeks him. It is good to wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord. Acknowledge what? God's sovereignty. Verse 37 and 39. Pastor was just talking about, God's gonna get his sovereignty. Nebuchadnezzar came out, right? Oh, this is the Chicago that I built. Look at this, I did Millicent Mile, I did all of that and all that. And they said before he could even stop talking, God said, no, you're gonna run in the woods like a crazy man for 7 years until you acknowledge who I am. So hope. There's hope. And look at your legacy of what God is doing. Depression is real. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to share with one another and people that you would find. Here's the last thing I need to do. Get a cabinet. What do I mean by cabinet? Let me ask you a question. What's the most important cabinet to the president?
Kitchen.
No. Well, the people cabinet. What's the most important?
To the
President. To the president. Huh?
Vice President.
His cabinet.
Yeah. What's the most important cabinet to the president? President Biden.
Cabinet of it, I don't know, House of Representatives, Senate,
White.
Most of the time, I'm very proud of that. This might
military.
The most important cabinet to him is actually, it's not really a cabinet, I call it a cabinet, but it's the Security Council. Security Council. Security. Why?
Because they protect his life.
Right. What what type of people should he appoints the people on security council? What type of people should he appoint on?
People that are trained and trustworthy.
Say it again?
Trained and trustworthy.
Trustworthy. Yes, friends? Right.
Vigilant, watchful.
People who can what?
Protective.
Not protect them, but also tell them what?
The truth.
Tell them the truth. The most important people is the security council, because those are the people that's going to tell him, especially because they're the only ones that's going, when he got to make major decisions. Think about the president. Remember when Obama had to go and get Zara, or whatever your name was, and the people, Bin Laden. So he got to get people. And then I also remember earlier when, who was that? Disagreed, but he got off respectfully, Colin Powell. Can't be yes people. You need to get a cabinet. You need to get a cabinet, trust me. I preached this at Circle Y probably about over 20 years ago. And even right now, I got some people on my cabinet. Now sometimes you gotta get some people some red, some pink slips. Okay, you gotta give some people some pink slips. Some people that you're listening to, you're like, I need to put you on a different cabinet. But there are people on my cabinet. Yes, most of the time they get on my everlasting nerve. But I've given them permission to say, what are you doing? Where are you going? People on your cabinet should be able to call you up at 12 or whatever, where you at. And the people that you're listening to now, you need to go home and probably pass on some pink slips to some people that I need to put you on a different cabinet. I've had a cabinet for quite a while. And I don't think even with my ups and downs, even right now, today, this week, had to meet with a couple of cabinets. Pastor Sally is one of the ones on my cabinet. Everybody probably basically know that. My daughters are on my cabinet. And they do not hold back. Dear God. And whenever we discussing something and they say, could we just go? Okay, I know it's coming. I'm getting ready to say something that you're not going to like.
Yep, brace for it.
Here it is.
Yes.
But the bottom line is they're on my cabinet because they love me. And they also will build me up and want to make sure that I get to where God is trying to take me.
That's right. That's right.
So as we close, ask yourself, even through your depression and stuff that you're going through, the great loss, you need some people that will help you. Jesus was overwhelmed when he was speaking one time at this group of people because he was speaking and the house was so crowded that nobody could get in. There were some other men who had a friend who was what? Couldn't get in. They couldn't get in. They carried him.
Yes, they did.
His cabinet members carried him to what?
The roof.
The roof. Opened it up and lowered him down. Blew Jesus away. You got friends like that?
Because of your faith.
Know what you got to go through. No, we're here to carry you. Sometimes you can't do nothing. You need some folks to carry you
That's
through
right.
your depression.
Yeah.
Carry you through some stuff. You get on their nerves sometimes, and they get on your nerves. I hope that this has helped you as you just look at our discussion on depression. I want to talk so much. Any questions? Any insights?
I do actually have a question. And I guess this for either one of you to answer. You were
Sure.
I know, but from the clinic, so much has come up with depression, and some people talk about like bipolar. I've been hearing that That's a lot lately. And so, I know it's different levels of depression, bipolar. What other names of depression?
Well, I will first. Bipolar is, I didn't mention that, because the person that I just had mentioned before that lost her son and daughter, and I did her
up and down, they up and they.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I learned the hard way because, I'll go ahead and share this, because at the beginning, like 8 or 9 years ago, we were in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know nothing, even in the clinician. I knew about bipolar, but I didn't know.
Right.
One day it was like, hey, so. The next day it's like, what the?
Yeah, right.
What is going on? And then she had shared about bipolar, but she was struggling because she's like, I don't want to take the medicine in. But anyway, I learned so much from her, even from her psychiatrist, awesome Nigerian doctor who was just an awesome psychiatrist. But yes, bipolar is a symptom, is a part of depression, and most of the people that I know, you probably answer, most of the ones I know are taking medicine. Now that's the medicine that I was talking about, that she has to take the chemical, because she has a real chemical imbalance. And she's a recovering person too, and part of it was that the balances were way off. It was way off. And I'm like, yeah, I know, trust me. And so, but she struggled because of, she said, the way that the medicine made her feel. Now, what I did help her with was really you got to tell the doctor that, because they got to take blood levels and then adjust it.
Yeah, like temperature, like the temperature.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, but that's my.
So bipolar disorder is, you'll hear people say bipolar depression. Bipolar disorder is a disorder where your moods are drastically affected from one pole or one end of the spectrum to the other pole or the other end of the spectrum. So when people have bipolar disorder, they may be manic, and what that is like euphoria. Decision making is not really good during that time because everything is wonderful. They may spend lots of money, they may have lots of sex, live really recklessly, right? Then the other end of that looks like very deep depression, where I can't get out of bed, I can't shower. And it can go, again, it's on a spectrum. So depressions can be more deep sometimes than they are other times. They can last longer sometimes than they do at other times. But the idea of bipolar depression is that it cycles between depression and euphoria or mania or hypomania, right? Depending on if you have bipolar 1 or 2. But and then there are other types of depression, like seasonal affective disorder. This is what you hear people talk about, the winter blues.
Yeah.
In the wintertime, I just don't feel so good, So there are different types of depression. There is dysthymia, which is where you just, for a period of 2 years or longer, you just can't get your mood to elevate. So there are very many different types of depression that the major thing is what he described is how it makes you feel. But then depending on how long you've been experiencing it, then that will determine how it's diagnosed.
I definitely suffer from the seasonal. The seasonal. And I noticed that as I'm getting older, like this, it's like it's rough, it's difficult. Because if you ask me, trust me, if I was rich, I'd be out of here. I'd come November, well, I'm not Florida. I go somewhere, Bahamas, somewhere.
I actually do talks about depression and winter blues at some senior centers because they tend to not be able to get out as much.
Yep.
And so I have to help them find ways within their own environments to lift their mood. And one of the things I tell them is, when you know October is coming, get you some bright daylight bulbs.
Yep.
And put them in your apartment or in your house, because the sunlight we lack that vitamin D in the wintertime. And so that helps with your mood, you know. Make sure you're talking to your doctor so that if you have a thyroid disorder or something like that, then they can, you know, look at that and diagnose that, and that helps lift that depression some. And they've done just some studies recently about using light for depression. And so they give these light treatments, and they're now starting to kind of roll it out and test it.
And how many know that colors affect your depression? Mm-hmm. Yeah. When you were coming up, what were the colors in school?
Red, yellow, white.
Green, pretty much, right? At least, well, maybe it's a Detroit thing, but remember the colors in school, they were all like dull, right? Green and whatever, and they showed where the other schools, when they change, you know, bright colors or whatever, it changes the kids' mood.
Yeah.
You know, it changes, because when you're depressed, what do you want to do?
Dark.
Yeah.
Right.
Everything dark.
Turn the, you know, blade, the shades out. Yeah.
I have a question. What is there, how do you determine if it's depression or if it's just a person's personality? I've heard people talk about their home bodies. What's the difference in a home body and a depressed person?
Well, it's kind of hard to, you know, I know some people that, I don't know both, I just know some people that just don't like to go nowhere and they ain't depressed. They're just like, you know, I'm just, you know,
Content.
I like staying at home. And I think, I would say with that person, what else are they doing? Mm-hmm. You know, I know some people that just like to stay at home, but I know one person I'm thinking of just like, but they like to go fishing. Mm-hmm. That's their outlet. Mm-hmm. So what is your outlet? Maybe your outlet is not outgoing, you know, you're more introvert, you know. So I think, yeah, I mean, that's probably the safest answer I can get without knowing the person. Yeah. Any other questions, insights?
I enjoyed your everything that you said and talking about depression, because when I was younger, I did have depression to a certain extent. I wasn't, I didn't need diagnosis, I didn't need treatment, but I would get depressed, and I had to, and then seasonal depression, and not seasonal, but a time frame depression. Situational, yeah, depression. And so one of the things that the Lord gave me to do was to start laughing and find things that were funny and find ways to talk to people. And I had to start talking to people that I didn't know. You know, talking to people that we do know is easy, but talking to people that you don't know is not, is more of a challenge. And that brought me out of some of that. So I thank God for this whole symposium, because dealing with these issues, especially coming up, I didn't feel like I had somebody to really go to and talk to about this. Right. But becoming an adult and understanding, getting a better understanding. But when I was a teenager, I was depressed. And it's the difference in a homebody and a depressed person, because I didn't like myself. I didn't like how I was just blah. It was different in being comfortable being at home. I didn't like being at home, but I was there because I didn't want to deal with anybody else. So,
real quick, I want to hear, how do you deal with whatever, you ain't got to say whatever level you're depressed. What do you guys do? What do you, when you get down? Huh?
Music.
Music?
And I pray.
Pray?
Yes.
I pray. I read the scripture.
Yes.
Okay.
On a daily basis.
Yes.
Okay.
Keep me up.
Yes.
Awesome.
And then I along with music, I kind of talk to myself.
That's right.
I know. It sounds cool, but it's
No,
not
it's not. No.
I'll be down, I'll get down, and then Holy Spirit, something within, like Robert. I'm like, yeah.
Stop. Right.
Myself says, you know, talk to yourself, you know, and you just go from there.
That's one of my main things.
I do a lot of, it's a lot of different things. So, of course, listening to the music, praying, talking to people that I don't know, talking to people that I do know, just getting myself out of the room. Because a lot of times when I would be depressed, I would want to stay in one room.
Yep.
I want to be alone. I don't want to be around other people. So what the Lord allowed me to do is learn to get out and get among people, and that'll help.
Yeah, I hope you're listening. The music and the talking is one of the main things. I think we can share with each other, because when I said this before at the last session, when Eve was there, and even though Adam was there, who was there? Satan, right? And what was he doing?
Talking.
Right. But I believe, now if I don't say this, if I believe he was whispering in the ear, baby girl, hell no. Right. Getting in their what?
Getting our mind.
In her mind. And so one of the things that has helped me is like, Lord, I get depressed. Send me your phone call or whatever. What is the person that I need to talk to? Who's the person I need to talk to? And man, wow, I feel so good. I was here setting this up yesterday, and the other person, before that, the number one person, and when I think when you came in, I was playing the number one person is Kurt Franklin.
Yes,
Everybody knows. Because why? Not only his music, but also he's open about stuff that he's went through. And so, but his music, oh my goodness. When I came this morning, Marcina was there, and I was playing, I had been up since 5:30, I was playing Kurt Franklin. That helps me, But music is absolutely, next year we're going to really get into how music helps us with our mental health and our walks. Yes, ma'am.
Can depression act out in a different way? Because I hear people say they like to be in a room, they like to be alone, this or that or the other. Can it work out that you're just irritable?
Yeah.
And because that's the way mine is. I don't think I ever want to be alone. I'm a person that like to have people around me. But when I get to a place, and sometimes I get irritable or whatever, and sometimes the Lord will just speak to me and tell me get up and go somewhere. And then I'll get up and I'll go, and
that's me too. Or just go for a walk, fishing, exercise, bike riding, exercising. And the thing about it, over the last month, I had stopped, and I don't really I definitely didn't like running. But I got on that treadmill and I found out, and actually I have to be listening to something. Next thing I know, I'm doing like 20, 30 minutes. I'm like, oh, okay, go ahead, boy. And it would feel great when I leave. But anyway, thank you all so much. You do have the paint things if you want to eat, and grab a try your hand at painting. Chanel has sketched some things on the canvas for us already. I'm just overwhelmed that she did that. And the whole idea was just to paint. That's another way. Just, you can sketch your feelings, or actually the whole thing, I thought people just was going to be blank, but she sketched some things. And so if you want to paint, stay for a while. We're going to be here. Thank you so much. Thank you, Velma. And so, let's pray. Jay, why don't you pray for us?
Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for this event.
Yes.
Breaking down some walls that have divided so many of your people. But we appreciate the opportunity to participate, to grow together, and to learn and to understand and educate others. To be honest and open with where we are. And others might be drawn and say, oh, I can talk to you about that. So continue your plan, Father. This is all your plan. And we are ministers of yours. We represent you and your kingdom. But we need to do it in an effective way for people who are really hurting. So bless my brothers and sisters here, and even those beyond who are in this work to break down these barriers for your glory. And we ask a blessing too upon the meal that we're about to receive. Our bodies would agree with it, make it good and healthy for us. And keep us safe and healthy, Father, even in our minds, our spirit, and our body. In Jesus' name.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. So, and then I'm gonna do the